this is just his second start, but you can see the talent on the field. You can see, that he's got leadership skills, and he obviously had a great career here while he was in high school, and I think very, very highly of him.
So make sure those conversations are open. How do you prepare for that, knowing that you're the program that a lot of people are trying to emulate?
Yeah, just keep winning and continue to have opportunities is the goal, and that's part of the understanding of being unselfish, whether it's players or coaches. And we know that when we're unselfish and we win as a team, there's great opportunity for everybody in their careers, and that's a good thing. We want to make it great for guys to stay in the program, players and coaches, and retain as many people as we can, knowing that 100% is unrealistic, but that's why we want continuity. That's why we want stability. I think that's a big focus for us right now, to make sure that we have that, because in a day and age when you're just seeing a lot of changes in the game right now. I think you've heard a lot of coaches get up and say, there's been a lot of changes. The college landscape has changed with NIL, with transfer portal. Well, I think you're seeing that on the field now. You're seeing teams that maybe haven't been, historically in the top 10 or top 15 that now are in the top 10, top 15. And so all of the changes that have happened in terms of roster building, roster management, and things like that are now happening on the field. And it's just, a reflection of that. And so, we want to make sure that we're retaining all of our players and all of our coaches, so that it is it's an edge for us against our competitors.
With some of the guys, and he talked on the radio show, they're younger than when he's used to coaching. Well, why do you think he's been able to gel with them so well?
I mean, everybody has their own style, and I think when he got in here, he had a certain list of things that he wanted to get done early on, and I think he's done that. He's let his personality go, which has been great. Each year you have a different set of dynamics at play, coaches and players, and that journey has its own story. So, I think he understands more than anybody that the season's just begun now. We're just getting started here. We've had the first half of the year, and that's great, but this is what really matters. And his history of coaching in the NFL helps him give some perspective to everybody of just how long of a run this is. Those of us who went through it last year, that's one thing, but he's done it for multiple years, and you've got to keep building each week. And I know that he understands that, and he's continuing to talk to the staff and the players about that as well. It's already been conveyed to them, and it'll continue to be conveyed. We have a 2:30 meeting here, as you know. Tuesdays are a big day. We'll go through, what we think in terms of all three phases, but we know that this was, one of the top 5-10 teams in the country. I don't think there's many teams in the country that have more talent than Penn State has, and I think people recognize that early in the season. Sure, it hasn't gone the way they wanted it to, but that doesn't change that they still have really good players. And when you looked at this game, a few months ago, I mean, it was an absolute matchup game. That has not changed. It's still the same players other than the quarterback. And so our guys know that, they understand that, and they know that it's about us. It's not about our opponent. And so we'll focus on our preparation, but you need to know your opponent. And these are very, very talented players. They have a lot of NFL players, and we know they have really good coaches. So all of that's going to lead into a huge matchup game for us on Saturday. Nothing to lose mentality. So we have to be on high alert at all times for things. They have 2 weeks to put together different things on offense, defense, and special teams that they haven't put on film. We know that. And certainly when you have a coaching change like they did, we expect that. So like you said, you have to expect the unexpected, be on high alert, know that they sort of have that mentality going into the game. And, so all of those things matter. At the end of the day, you still got to go play, and you don't know what's going to come, but we have to understand what our opponent is, and the fact that they've had 2 weeks to prepare and change up the looks. Well, I think that Josh Padilla has continued to practice well. When he's been in the games, he's played well. He's not perfect, and so we feel like he has an opportunity to mix in there as the sixth offensive lineman in the game, like he's been the last few games. We'll continue to evaluate it this week and figure out what gives us the best chance to win, but he certainly has played into one of our top 6 players. Learn something new. You're seeing it's not just all 4 down front, although you still see a lot of 4 down front, so there's still so many things that he teaches that's the same way that it's been his whole career. But he's also getting challenged in other areas, and I think for him, it's exciting because it is something a little new, and where he's at in his career, there's so many things that he can bring to the table, but also, pick up in terms of new ideas and thoughts, and I think to your point, it has re-energized him. Well, I say it all the time, and every play we want him to score a touchdown on, so every play should be an explosive in my mind, and when we're out the practice field and on the scout team and it doesn't go for an explosive, it's like, wow, something went broke down. So our execution level has got to increase just across the board, and so yeah, we're there's always the balance of you try to create explosives and then you put yourself at risk of turnovers, and controlling the ball, making sure you're playing your defense, all those things come into play. We know that we're going to have to be explosive on offense and figure out ways to do that, and so I think during the bye week we've been able to look at the things that we've done well and the areas we're going to get better at. Everybody's involved in the run game. It's not an easy thing, and I think it's been good. Has it been great? No, it hasn't been great. We can get better. I think that's everybody involved, including quarterback, the receivers, the tight ends, the running backs, and obviously the offensive line. So all areas that we want to get better at in terms of being explosive, being efficient. But I say to the running backs a lot, like the first 4 yards are for the team, and then the rest of it, you got to go trust your God-given ability. And so some of the things in the last game, they put an extra guy in the box, and the RPO led us to throw the ball. Those don't show up in the running statistics, but when you have a quarterback who has the ability to run, you saw him pull. We read an end. We'll do some more of that with Julian. But he also can read some off the line defenders, and so like when you look at the running statistics, we look at them just a little bit different, because if they're leaving one-on-one on the outside and put an extra guy in the box, and we're hitting an 8-yard hitch to Jeremiah, that's really the run game, because it complements. So to answer your question, yeah, it's been good. It hasn't been great. We need to get better at it. We want to create more explosives.
Sue, where does walking through a corn maze of your own image rank on a scale from 1 to I finally made it?
Well, I've read a lot of things on the internet, AI, that are not true. So I would say that it's hitting about 20%, but that actually is true. We actually that's been something we've been doing as a family yearly, and the folks out there at the corn maze had said, every year the corn maze is going to be something different. It was Jack Nicholas one year. They've done Ohio State theme for however many years, and they said, you win a national championship, then we'll do one of you. And so they held up their end of the bargain. So we went out there for a little while. I tried to be normal as a family. It wasn't normal because the kids were throwing corn at each other when they but it was great. It's great to do things like that, and we're in the Woody during the season, just to get away even for a couple hours, because we call it submarine right here. Like, this is where we are. We don't go out in public. We don't do much. But to hear the people there talk about how we're glad that Ohio State's on a bye week, because we get a lot more people here than when they're playing on Saturdays. There's nobody here, and it's a great opportunity to get an idea of kind of how important football is in the community. But yeah, it's good to get a little bit of perspective walking away for at least for a couple of hours anyways. People stand up straight. This is a guy who had a tremendous amount of character and left a lot of that behind. He didn't just go through this place. He left a work ethic, he left leadership, he left a discipline, and certainly a body of work on the field. And I know everybody in Buckeye Nation is mourning his loss, and then obviously what he did in the NFL, and just all the people that were able to have him as a teammate speak so highly of him, and so he's going to be dearly missed. Figure that out right there. And so we try to create drills. We watch it on film. We look to work it in the body of a practice of a thud of an inside drill. When do you make somebody miss? When do you drop your shoulder, run over? What are the tools that the coaches are giving you in order to do a good job of yards after contact? And that's sort of how you're judged as a running back. Not 100%, but that's a big part of it. And I think we're getting better in that area. We're drilling it more, and we want to see that more on film.
That period of time when there's a lack of leadership, when that team needs versus what when you
hired athlete versus hiring Kerry Collins, Jim Knowles, and now Matt Patricia. That thought process, that philosophy of going about it that way.
You learn every year, and I think people ask me a lot, you know, when every year, what have you learned the most? One of the top three things is when you make hires. I think maybe early on, you make decisions based on a recruit or two, or maybe, you know, the public sentiment, where you gotta do what's best for your team, you know, and I think, continuity is important, but we also gotta do what's best. But you know, there also is another part of it too, you know, and the guys have to feel like you're doing everything you possibly can to make sure, you know, you're bringing in the best guy to help them. And, you know, whether it is somebody that, you know, people around the program, because again, like, you know, you talk about fans, you talk about the boosters, you talk about people in the building, you talk about parents of recruits, you talk about the players, their parents, like, everybody has opinions on all those things. And nowadays, people can decide to come and go, through the transfer portal. So we have to take all those things into consideration when we're making a hire. But at the end of the day, we have to make the best hire for Ohio State, period. And I watched, you know, Coach Saban was really good at it, in my opinion. You know, all of those great runs that he made each year, you know, he would have guys picked off in his staff, and then he was very thorough about how he hired the next one. And I'm sure he would say, you know, some were better than others, but making sure that in that moment we're not rushing in to make a decision. And I think you saw that with Matt. You know, there was a lag time between when Jim left and when we hired Matt, where I think a lot of people were like, man, he's gonna hire one here pretty soon, you know? But it left us in a tough spot because the hiring cycle was already sort of done. And so it was so late. But, you know, the fact that Matt was available, man, it ended up being a home run. And so just being thorough and making sure we're doing what's right by the players, I think getting some of their feedback is important. You know, talking to Caleb, talking to Sonny, you know, what do you guys think about this? And then the last part, which is probably the most important part, is getting the feedback of the assistant coaches. Because, you know, Tim, James, Larry, Matt, they have to work with whoever this guy is who comes in. And that's probably the part that maybe isn't getting recognized enough. Because, yeah, Jim did a great job last year. Matt's doing a great job this year. What's the common denominator? Those coaches and the players. So, I think we have the best defensive coaching staff in America, and I think sometimes, you know, they don't get recognized enough. Not that, you know, we're in to get recognized, but those guys put the work in behind the scenes, and they're doing a great job. So, it's a long answer, but that's kind of some of the things that went into it. I think it's all the above, and we still have a lot of football to play. So the story's yet to be told, but I think it's a simple answer. It's not easy to do, but you have to build trust. And how do you build trust? I think, you know, from Matt coming in, he had a certain level of credibility because of his past and his resume. But when he came in and he let his personality go and he connected with the people in the building, I think that's, you know, early on what gave him some early wins. And then, you know, we played well early in the season, and there was belief there, and then there was confidence built in. And so, you know, that combined with Sonny, Caleb, KJ, Caden, IGB, guys who have been there before that can bring guys along and make them better, which I think is a sign of a really good player when they make others better. And I think that has had a huge part of this. You know, when Jalen's next to Caleb, he feels stronger. You know, when Lorenzo's next to, you know, Jermaine, they feel stronger together. When Arvell's next to Sonny, you know, he feels stronger. Now that we're halfway through the season, I think that we know what we have with these guys, and they have confidence, and now they're bringing other people along. But then the other part of it is the staff, you know, and these guys work hard, you know, and you know, Matt puts together the plan and does a great job, but those are the guys that are, you know, on the front lines fighting the battles every day to make sure that their guys are great enough. Growing each week. I think he still has a high ceiling. I think he still could be an even more productive player, but you're seeing the capability there, and you're seeing them become more consistent. And like we said, great defenses are built from inside out, and he's a big part of our defense. We know that. He knows that. And so we need that consistency out of him, but you guys see the potential just like we do. And, you know, but again, the exciting thing is he's not tapped out, and he's been a huge part of it so far, and now we really need him on the home stretch, and he has the ability to be a game. You know, when, like any relationship, when it breaks off, you know, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but there really hasn't been much communication. You know, he did a great job when he was here. You know, helped us win a national championship, and kind of left it at that. And then it was, you know, okay, we got to go make a replacement and move on from there. So, yeah, that's kind of how it is, and it was abrupt, but we certainly respect the work that he did when he was here.
Is it, I mean, coaches move on, but is it any different when he goes down the road to a Big Ten rival as opposed to some other job?
I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier, just about how college football and how it's changed, and you know, the money and everything like that. It's just, you're seeing some things that maybe we're not used to. But I guess when you look at the NFL, you see more of that than you would in college. But I guess we're getting more like the NFL. So we try not to take those things personal, but we are human. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, we'll go through the week and figure out what gives us the best chance. But you know, we have really good backs. They have really good backs. You know, I think that's another way to look at some of these matchup games is, you know, are you running harder than their backs? You know, and are they running harder than us? You know, if so, why? You know, like, so I think their backs are very good. Both of them, you know, run really, really hard, and we need to do the same thing with our guys. So we'll keep looking at it. I mean, we do have some young backs. I think that they're growing every day and building, but to say we have like a veteran guys like we did last year, we know exactly what we have week in and week out, is probably not accurate. So these guys got to have a great week and then go improve themselves on Saturday, and that's it.
Two more.
It's about, you know, everyone has their, you know, their name and their character and how they want to handle things, and you know, I try to do what's right by, you know, assistant coaches. When you hire somebody, you try to call a coach. It's not always as linear as you'd like to think. There's a lot of dynamics at play, and it doesn't always work exactly the way you want to. But yeah, I think our guys have always done a good job of communicating. If there's things out there, they communicate to me just to let me know. You know, I'm always, you know, understanding in terms of those types of things. But we have a job to do here. You know, it's mid-season and we got a lot of football to play. So you know, those guys got to make sure they stay focused. And I've been through that before too. But the bottom line is, if you want to get a really good job, just do a really good job with the one you're at.
Player, and you think y'all done a pretty good job of that?
Yeah, we want to be tough, but we also want to be smart. And yeah, if you want to know how disciplined somebody is, you know, look at their grades. You know, see how they're doing. You know, they target for class. It's not always how it works. You know, there's some guys who don't get great grades who are really football smart, but you know, we do look at those things, and we want guys to do well in the classroom, because we feel like how you do one thing is how you do everything. You know, if you're taking care of, we do meetings weekly and go through everybody in the building who has an interaction with our players. We go through them, and our academic folks will give a trend on our players. And typically how they're doing in the classroom is how they're doing on the field. It's not 100%, but pretty darn close. Oh, he was late for a meeting, he missed an assignment, and then you get to the football coach, he says, yeah, he's not doing very well. He missed an assignment on play 3, and he's not finishing, you know, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, nope, he was on time, everything's in order, he got a great grade, he's prepared, he shows up on time, does all his work, and then by the time you get to the coach, he's doing great, he shows up at meetings, takes great notes, and, you know, knows what he's doing on the field, got a great attitude, and Coach Marati, yep, he's there early, he's disciplined in his weight training. Then you get to the training staff, yes, he's there early, gets his treatment, gets his recovery, leaves on time, he's good to work with in the training room. Like, all of those things are usually aligned, and that's what we look for in players, you know, guys that understand that they need everybody in the building. And I think it's the player's job to make sure that they endear themselves to everybody in the league, and it's our job to make sure that we surround them with the best of the best, and to try to build these players up to maximize themselves. And so all that goes into play to make sure we're bringing the right people.